Welcome everybody to NorCal Slot Car Scene. One of the most awaited slot cars in a long time, the Shadow DN4 from MRSLOTCAR is finally here. When I took the car out of the box, the first thing that struck me was the overall appearance of this car. It's absolutely top-notch. The Shadow DN4 was the 1974 Can-Am champion, with Jackie Oliver winning 4 of the 5 races. The first livery that MRSLOTCAR is producing of the DN4 is the George Fulmer car. The slot car is a limited edition and comes with a commemorative plaque. As I said before, the overall appearance of this car is really good. The interior has quite a bit of detail, and there's actually a replica of the George Fulmer helmet. Plus, check out the detail of those mirrors. The small details of this car are also actually done quite well, as you can see here in the side-by-side of the wheels of the slot car and the actual car. This continues in the rear end detail in the transaxle, the taillights, and the tailpipes, which are actually 3-dimensional. Now let's take a look at the actual slot car. It's a pretty straightforward design, being a chassis with a motor pod in the Sidewinder configuration. If you're racing with magnets, there is a barb magnet directly in front of the slotted source 23K motor. The motor is firmly attached to the motor pod with 2 screws. The rear wheels are 15.8 by 10.2 millimeter non-air style. The rear tires are slotted sourced C1 compound. The front wheels are also aluminum and are 14.3 by 8.2 millimeters. The axle height is positioned with the standard 4-set screw system. I'm sure a lot of you are wondering how this compares to the dominant car in the Can-Am class, the Thunderslot Lolas and McLarens. As you can see here, the car is a little bit longer. The guide lead is approximately 96 millimeters, and the width is about 62 millimeters. Now let's take a look at the weight of the car. Out of the box, the car weighs about 70 grams. The body itself is just under 18 grams, which is actually pretty light considering that it's a very big wing on the back of this car. There are a couple of unique features found in this car. A new guide system was required to keep the scale appearance of the extremely low nose of the Shadow. The second is the 2-point mount system for the pod, which is different than all other manufacturers who use either a 3 or a 4-point mount. First, let's take a look at the guide. As you can see from this picture, it has an extremely low profile. To do this, MRSLOTCAR got away from the traditional guide post. I've disassembled the guide, and you can see the 2 pieces here. There's a top half and a bottom half. When you reassemble it, the bottom half of the guide rides in a channel in the chassis. When you replace the top half of the guide with the 2 machine screws, the chassis is now sandwiched between the guide and rotates. The chassis does feature a channel that allows you to route the lead wire from the motor to the guide. The 2-point mount system is something that MRSLOTCAR has been using ever since they started building 1/32 scale slot cars. Because the 2-point mount system pivots along the center line of the car, as the car goes through a corner and the chassis rolls, it allows one side to go up and the other side to go down. This helps keep the tires firmly planted on the track. This type of movement is not possible with a 3 or 4-point mount system. To control the movement, there are screws on each side of the chassis that go up into the motor pod, along with a spacer in between. This can be adjusted for the desired amount of play, or MRSLOTCAR also makes a suspension kit for this system. That's a quick look at the MRSLOTCAR Shadow DN4. In the next few days, I'll be building the car to Can-Am specs for a race at Silicon City Speedway. Stay tuned to see how it does against the Thunderslots and the other Can-Am cars. Thanks for watching. This is Jim Rose with NorCal Slot Car Scene.